Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. We have another exciting show for you filled with like some real estate nuggets of wisdom. And someone who's going to be bringing some of those nuggets is none other than Quentin D'Souza sitting here with me today. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, man? I'm awesome. I just finished workout this morning, did my legs, and I'm raring to go.
Yeah, Quinn's on fire this morning. He's just been going off before we started recording. So um, it's going to be a live one today, folks.
Yeah. Well, I got a ton going on. Like I just finished a CMHC refinance on an 8 unit property. We did a bit like about 250K equity takeout, and I finished a couple of other CMHCs that we refinanced at the beginning of January. I'm working on another CMHC refinance on a building in March. Lots of changes going on too. We just found out that we have new trust rules in Canada that we have to follow. So all our joint venture agreements, we have to do a T3 form plus T3 schedule that identifies all the partnerships and who owns what and how much and all of that. So that's a new ruling that's come into play as of December 31st and has to be done as of beginning of April. So I think March 30th. So it has to be submitted by April 1st. And the penalty is huge. It's like
Yeah.
5% of the actual asset. So, some of our like I've got 25 apartment buildings. And one building could be like, let's say it's $15 million. 5% of that is gigantic for a
Yeah.
penalty. So nobody wants to mess that sort of stuff up. So,
Yeah, and can you clear that up? Is that for anyone with a partnership? Even if it's a small joint venture partnership, you've got to file that.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously you need to talk to your accounting professional, but from the advice that I have been getting, it has a lot to do with any sort of trust agreement that you have. So just say, let's say you're helping your elderly parents and they put you on their title. You have a bare trust based on that, just because you were helping them to pay their bills and things like that. That's still a bare trust. Or in the case of like real estate investors, maybe you have one partner that's on title and another partner that's just in a joint venture agreement and not on title. That's considered a trust agreement. And so now you're going to have to file that. So for the accounting firms, it's more money for them. And then, but
Yeah.
once, like, just like the underutilized housing tax that kind of came in last year, they were trying to get this done for the last 2 years and they finally implemented it this year. Who knows what happens at the end of March if they push it off or whatever. But, that's definitely a lot more paperwork that has to happen.
Mhm.
And I've got a Durham REI meeting tomorrow night, so I'm just preparing my keynote for that. Getting ready, talking a lot of macro. I've been looking at some of the numbers, and single family home construction and permits are down like significantly, and there are just not anything in the pipeline in 2 or 3 years. We had a big influx, mostly of condos coming into the market in 2023 and completions. But, from last year to this year, we all know that construction in Ontario in particular, but in different provinces takes a lot of time, different amounts of time. In Ontario, it takes forever. It takes years in some cases. And although many levels of government want to be, oh yeah, we want more housing, what often happens is it takes forever to get it done. So if you look at some of the numbers, like Benjamin Tal said that CMHC had underestimated their numbers in the millions. So, that was a recent article, but I mean, I'll have to pull that out and share it too. But it's crazy. So, I've been telling people and survive to 2025, but maybe buy more in 2024. right?
I
So
like the
it's
little rhyme, but I'm
yeah,
going to
so
mute my mic while I bang my head on the table about that information that you just told, you
oh,
know?
don't worry.
Yeah. So for those of you who can't see this, and that this may be, so this is a result of you pulling all that money out of the building you were just talking about. I think he's got way too much money because Quentin bought a bobblehead Rob. And anytime I talk to him now, little bobblehead Rob has something to say.
Oh
So
yeah, this is gonna be the best. I love this.
hopefully he's not the like little, I don't know. Hopefully he's a good influence, not a bad influence.
Oh,
But anyway,
you've
way too
always
much
been
money.
you've been a good influence. We've had some great trips in Costa Rica. Oh, we had a great trip in Costa Rica, and
Yeah.
you've really done some amazing things in your life from where I remember you starting to where you are now. So just, and you have a beautiful wife, beautiful kids, like just awesome life. So good stuff on you, man.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's definitely been not the trajectory of what I thought it was going to be, even like, let's say 10 years ago when we started this. But anyway, everyone listening, go over to breakthrough.reipodcast.ca, get our free gift, and also go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. And that'll really help us get some great guests on. Let us know what you think about the semi-new format of the show, and and just leave us a review. It doesn't take that long, and it helps out get this podcast into the ears of people who want this kind of information, like Quentin just shared there, and like our guest is going to share.
Yeah,
So
we have an awesome guest today. So what I'd like to do is introduce Dan, and I'm going to butcher his last name, so he's going to have to help me. Uh, I know him because of his connection with a landscaping company that's all over our neighborhood, but it's Dan Hogenbirk.
Yep, that's right.
Woo! Dan Hogenberg. Daniel is a licensed builder focusing on building his business around the new opportunities presented by policy changes encouraging intensification in existing neighborhoods. Daniel's business, North Lakes Development and Construction, builds properties for themselves and joint venture partners as well as clients.
welcome, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on the show.
So, where we usually jump right into real estate and asking the background of what, how you got to where you are, kind of thing. I also wanted to start talking to people about what they've done with the freedom and perks that real estate affords them. So, tell us a little bit about yourself as a person.
Yeah, so I haven't really done very much in terms of the freedom real estate has provided us at this point. We're a little bit earlier in our career. Where it has helped is when we took over my parents' landscape construction company, the sale of their business fell through, and they approached myself and my brother-in-law to see if we wanted to purchase it. So we purchased it, and we noticed that a number of divisions were actually operating at a loss. So we had to change our business quite a bit, and the insurance is actually increasing over the next few years for snow removal. So we kind of try to come up with a solution, and we discovered real estate investing. So we thought, why don't we start doing this in the winter time to keep our guys busy, and we'll do landscape construction in the summer. And that way we can also start building some wealth for ourselves. So that's sort of where we got started. We started purchasing duplexes with our own money, and over the years it kind of grew. So last year we were able to sell off all of the portions of the business that weren't operating at a profit. Now we were able to switch to where it was landscape construction in the summer and real estate in the winter. This year is the first year we're doing real estate all 12 months of the year, as well as doing landscape construction. So I guess a roundabout way, what real estate did is it allowed us to get out of some unprofitable businesses. But at this point, we haven't taken a lot of time for ourselves because we have a fairly large business, and we wanted to make sure that it was functioning well before we started using the freedom that real estate was going to provide. we're getting in that
Well,
stage now, but not at the beginning.
well, I think that's exactly it, though. It's not always just, hey, I go tap dancing on Tuesday night because now I can afford to. It's just that you were able to analyze the business and restructure it in some way because of what real estate did for you there. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I remember too when I was at the beginning, 2004, 2008, I felt like I had like, three jobs. Like
mm,
I was working like going to work as a teacher during the day, and then at 4 o'clock I would be with my family, and then like I would be doing real estate as soon as the kids were in bed until like 8 until like midnight, and then do it all again the next morning, right? Like
Yeah.
it was a slog at the beginning for the first 5 years, right?
mm.
But
Well,
then then.
Yeah.
they say use your current position to get into the position you want to be in, right? I think
Correct.
that's Think and Grow Rich, isn't it? Um, and so like, yeah, like that is the trajectory that everyone should try to be on. So when I was starting, I was using every moment of my free time to learn about real estate so that I could get into it, right? And eventually transitioned out of that and into new careers along the way. So yeah, good piece of advice there.
Yeah, so why do you like small developments so much as an investment strategy?
Yeah, so I really like small developments as an investment strategy because it fits really well with our existing business model where we have a lot of in-house employees. So on the smaller scale, oftentimes if you're using subs for the whole thing, it's going to actually mean that the project's going to take quite a bit longer. So it actually is advantageous to have a lot of the people in-house. And then on the other side, sort of on a like a life philosophy side, because a lot of us who go into real estate, you're going to achieve financial independence fairly early, or you already have. I didn't really want to pursue something for my career where it wasn't really going to be a positive for everyone who's involved. And it's hard to say that this type of business isn't positive for all parties because the municipalities need this to be done. Yeah, tenants like to have great new units. Your investors can get good returns as well, and you can as well. And it's really satisfying seeing something that you've worked on for a long time kind of come to fruition and actually be brought to life in the real world. So I really enjoy that portion of the business as well.
It's
So
interesting how you transitioned out of the snow removal stuff because I had I gotta say I had a colonoscopy last week, and paying my snow removal bills is kind of like a colonoscopy. Like it's brutal.
Yeah.
So like I'm paying it all like for all the buildings, like it's painful. Why is it so expensive for insurance? Why is it? Because that's what I get from all the snow removal companies. And like this is something that I'm dealing with all the time. In fact, this year I like it snowed like once, and like the contracts that I have, like I'm paying like tens of thousands. I'm thinking I could have bought a truck, I could have hired somebody, and I could have just subbed it out myself, right? Like for the amount that I'm paying across the portfolio. Like why is that? What's going on there? Sorry, it's a little
Yeah.
different, but
It's just the insurance prices are so high because you didn't have a lot of protection from slip and falls. So the rules are starting to change a little bit. Now people only have, just recently when we got out of snow, they only have 60 days to sue for a slip and fall, but beforehand they could sue whenever they wanted. So you had to keep reserves for whenever you got sued. And even if you didn't lose the suit, your insurance premiums would go up. So for any company at any size, we got sued every year. And so that when you're in that sort of position, your insurance rates go up. So we had when we got out of snow, our insurance dropped over $100,000 a year.
right. And I can see why, just in that there's hidden stuff under the snow. It's slippery, even if it's like vehicles, you're bumping into things sometimes and all that kind of risk that there is with that. I wanted to ask you before we move on though, what type of small developments are we talking about?
Yeah, so I've primarily worked on coach houses. I have a bunch of triplexes that are coming down the line. I also have a
Are
few
you
small.
building those from the ground up?
Yeah. I think we
Yeah.
got six scheduled. I think six scheduled for this year. I'm not sure. I have to look back, but we have a few small apartment buildings as well. So sixplexes and sevenplexes, and looking at different projects in that sort of space.
What area are you focused in?
Primarily Durham region.
Okay. That's
What?
interesting, man. That's a lot going on, you know?
Yeah, I think this year is going to be a big year for us. We currently have 24 units scheduled to start construction in 2024. So it's grown quite a bit, our business to this point. We're going to be pretty pretty busy with shovels in the ground this year, but it's going to be exciting for sure.
That's so interesting.
24 and 24. That's like a
Wow.
saying that you would have, Quentin.
Well, he's building more in 24. So, but I think that well, like how did the numbers actually work on that? Like I'm always a numbers guy when it comes to this sort of stuff. So if let's say you bought like a single family home and you're
Mhm.
converting it up to or let's say a single family, or you have an existing duplex and you're converting it up to a triplex or a fourplex. How do the numbers translate? Like, do you end up with a cash flow positive product where you wouldn't have before? Why is it so appealing to do this?
You can definitely end up with a cash flow positive product. And now with different options as well, you can end up with completely changing your financing structure, which gets you into commercial financing. So you can get up to your 50-year amortization on those products as well, and lower interest rates. So kind of mixing the two, you can end up being fairly cash flow positive. And often we're finding that the values of the buildings are high enough we can pull all of our capital out.
Ah, so you're doing a full burr on an existing, like on a new construction project. Are you doing like when you're saying that, are you doing MLI Select, which is a CMHC build product that's out there that allows for 50-year amortizations, and you can, use different components of it in order to get that sort of financing. One component would be like affordable housing, but another component could be, just like what are the other two? It's like
Energy efficiency and accessibility are the other two.
right. So is that what you're using in order to do that full pullout and the 50-year AMs?
Yeah, on some of them. Not every product that we're building we can do that, but it is definitely something that we're watching for. That would be an ideal project, is if we can get commercial. They just work out a little bit better, and it's easier as well. Where you're saying where you might not know exactly what the value are in some of these. Like if you do a duplex and a coach house, there's not a lot of comparables, so you don't know what the number is going to come in at. But if you go commercial, you know your rent numbers, you know what your utility costs are going to be. It's a lot easier to figure out what that end value of your build is going to be, so you feel more confident going into those ones, knowing what your end value is going to be and how much money you're going to be able to pull out.
Can you explain to everybody the difference between that 1 to 4 unit versus the 5+ and how that value comes about?
Yeah, for sure. So 1 to 4 unit is all basically a comparable approach. So it can be great. Like we were finding with duplexes, it was pretty easy a few years ago to pull all your money out. But right now we're in a funny spot a little bit where, like, let's say a top up or a duplex in a coach house, there aren't really a lot of comparables for it. So when you're the first into the market, a lot of appraisers are going to give you lower values. So it ends up being more of a challenge to pull your money out because there's not really any sold comparables. Now it's starting to get a little bit better than it was a few years ago. I did my first ones a while ago. I got some that I just finished now, and it's better now than it was 12 months ago, and it will probably be better again at 12 months from now. but it is still a bit of a challenge. Whereas with 5+ units, you can get commercial financing, and commercial financing is based off of your net operating income. So because you can figure out what your rent number will be, and you typically are going to know what your tax is, your insurance is going to be, your utility costs. You can get a pretty good idea going into the project what your final value will be. So it's a lot easier to step into that project knowing what your end value will be, and going in with confidence, essentially.
Yeah, a little tip there, because I've been looking at this. I've got 13 duplexes, and I've been looking at doing exactly one of these where, and actually Dan helped me identify it, which was awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Right.
Where we're splitting the lot, and we're looking to and we have a detached duplex on there, and we're looking to do another 3 units on the back so that we could make it into a 4 units semi on one side, 4 unit semi on the other. The challenge that we have with CMHC is that they want both sides of the building to look exactly the same. And so we may not be able to do the CMHC financing. It's always these little particulars that, like, little things, but
Well,
if
what's the reasoning behind that? Why do they have to look the same?
yeah,
Is that
because
like a heritage thing,
I don't know,
or is
because
it
the federal
CMHC?
government isn't talking to CMHC enough to tell them we need more housing, and we have to be a pain in the butt. So that, no, I don't know.
No, I'm just curious. Like that doesn't even make sense, because ultimately it could be two different, completely different projects, unrelated. In which case they wouldn't say your house has to look exactly like your neighbor's house.
It's the
You
point,
know?
like, I know, and the point is, we're trying to create more rental housing. That's the bottom line. It's not about like whether the finance, like, if the problem with building is that the financing doesn't make sense. And and the cost of construction is a problem. So if we don't have financing and it's not profitable, people aren't going to build. And this is a great tool. In the US, they have
Mhm.
a plethora of other products. They have lots of different ways of doing it. In Canada, we have CMHC. So, anyways, don't get me started on this.
No, that's good. That's good.
But Dan, it sounds like you've got a real interesting system going on here with all those builds. You must see lots of different opportunity right now.
I see a lot of opportunity in the market right now. There's a lot of projects that are in that style that I see, where there's more than what I can purchase for sure. They should find new ones pretty much every day. But the real opportunity I see is where, like you had mentioned earlier, we've seen the house values compress significantly over the last few years, and we're getting the different levels of government are implementing changes to increase the value of the land because you can build more on it. So we saw Bill 23. We are seeing a lot of secondary plans, which is where the municipalities are upzoning certain sections of the land that they have, where they're going to be allowing like 3 or 4 stories as of right. They're going to be having where it's like low-rise apartment buildings or mixed-use buildings. There's huge sections of municipalities that are getting essentially upzoned, where you don't have to pay for it right now. And a lot of them are going to be finished in 2024 or early 2025. And the large properties in those areas are still priced the exact same as a property that has no further potential, which is crazy because most people don't really don't see the value in land. So that's sort of where our type of business, we can kind of come in and purchase those properties and take advantage of it. So that's really something I find pretty interesting. The other thing I found interesting was I just read a news article the other day where Windsor got denied federal funding from the Housing Affordability Task Force because they weren't allowing 4 units as of right throughout all of Windsor. So they got denied $70 million from the federal government. Now, they were going to hit their housing targets with their proposal, but they still denied them because they weren't going to allow 4 units as of right everywhere. So it'll be really interesting to see if they use that sort of carrot and stick approach to get it to where it shows up in more municipalities. It's definitely not a for sure thing, but it's an interesting signal that we got in the market just recently to see where things might end up.
Yeah, municipalities are the problem. They are the big problem. I mean, like you can say something at the federal level and the provincial level, but if the municipal isn't on board, you're not going anywhere fast. And this is why, like in Edmonton, you can get a project done and started in 6 months, and in Toronto it takes 4 years or 5 years,
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's the really interesting thing about the secondary plan changes is because theoretically with some of these properties you can skip right to building permit. So
Wow.
I have one property like that where I purchased it zoned for a sixplex, but the owner didn't know you could put a sixplex on it, so I got it at a good price. And all I did was get building plans, one minor variance, and we're good to go. So it was like less than a year to get that ready, but they're rezoning huge sections of the municipalities to allow for that. So there's going to be a chance for a lot of small apartment building developments to have their timelines cut significantly in the next couple of years here. So that's the other big sort of opportunity with what's coming forward.
You know what they call that in like the stock market? They call that insider trading.
Well, I
Because, and
remember,
it's illegal. It's legal. And this is you using your skills and
right.
doing that.
Yeah.
I remember specifically when I was wholesaling a long time ago, and everyone wanted properties where you could put a basement apartment in, right? But at the time in the municipality where I was, that you had to look at the zoning, right? It wasn't opened up. And then and then a little while later, the entire municipality opened up to 2 units. And it was like, it was like just beautiful. It was a beautiful thing at
Yeah.
that point in time. So this is along the same lines of everything getting upzoned.
Yeah, exactly.
And it goes to that value of that detached house that's existing there, the additional value that has now, right? Like I don't think people understand that in a couple of years from now, like that's going to be golden. Like some of those lots are going to be golden.
Yeah.
And if you can hold on to them, they're going to have some serious value. So the challenge right now is a lot of people, especially once interest rates come down again, I think that a lot of people are gonna to dump their properties, especially the ones that have a lot of equity. Because I see investors, I talk to hundreds of investors, right, all the time,
Mhm.
and just in different places because this is what I do, and a lot of them who have $300,000-400,000 in equity and zero cash flow are getting older, and they're like, why am I doing this? Right? Why not just
I
sell
feel that
these?
way too
Yeah, sell
sometimes.
these. Yeah, no. And you like it's a reasonable feeling. Take the money and then like do some private lending at 10%. And now you have, 3,000-4,000 in cash flow, and you have not the same type of headaches. Nothing is, passive, truly passive. But I mean, at least you're doing things differently, and you're not worried about all the different things that happen with the landlord tenant board and all that stuff. So I have a feeling, and then what's going to happen is those are going to go back into the residential market, and you're just not going to have as many opportunities to be able to to utilize and convert and do what we're doing as investors, because what they do in Canada, right? They vilify investors. We're all evil, right? Like that's what it is. And we're not trying to create rental housing. That's the I think that's an issue really, because if we really wanted to help people create more rental housing, we would celebrate investors more instead of what we do in the media and in politics and stuff like that. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. That's my last
Yeah.
soapbox, I promise.
Where's the investor red carpet, Quentin?
I don't know. It's probably in other countries. It's in the US, that's for sure. It's
But I
not in
wanted to
here.
go, but the other thing too, Quentin, like you said, is like, if someone gets to that point, you have to get to that point first before you can sell off your portfolio and start doing private lending, obviously. And and what we're doing here is teaching people how
Yeah.
they can get to that point eventually at some time. And one thing
Yeah.
that I wanted to ask is, so we're talking about these incredible opportunities that are sort of around the corner. What is it like? What do people look for? How can they identify these type of properties that are going to be valuable?
Tell us your secrets.
Yes,
Well, it
that's the
depends on
whole
how much
point.
work they want to put into it. So essentially, if you can buy a property with a lot of extra land, that's in an urban residential area, that's going to be a benefit, because almost certainly something is going to be helping you out there. But if you essentially, when you're trying to figure out what you can do with the property, you can look at like the golden a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of different planning um, documents that say what they're going to be doing in, let's say, any area, but let's say in Ontario. So you have like the Golden Horseshoe Plan, and then you have the Durham Region Plan, you have Oshawa Plan, you go even deeper, you have secondary plans, and you have area plans, and you can read all of these, and you can keep narrowing down, and the more information that you have, the better chance that you're going to find one of those properties that's gold. So like I was looking at a property, let's say that was zoned R1, so you could just build a duplex on it, but it was right outside of a downtown urban center. So it was one property over from the high density area in a municipality that I was looking at. So I've already worked in this municipality. I know that when I'm just outside the high density zone, I was able to rezone an R1 to an apartment building, so it's where my sevenplex is going to be. So okay, this is getting sold as best a duplex, but I actually can put 12 units here without assembling anything. So you can, when you put things together and you start to get them, when you start reading those plans and start working in the space, you get a good mental map of what's possible on those properties.
So I
Do you look
guess
for like corner lots and parking as well, or just the size of the lot is like?
Typically our process, it would be find a property that has, where we think that has potential. Typically what we'll do from there is we'll create a site plan in-house. So the site plan will tell me how big of a building I can build, how many parking spaces I'm going to get, and then it'll tell me how many variances I'm going to need in order to get this project to come about. From there, I can figure out what my end value of the property is, because if you're, let's say, going to build a sixplex, but you're only gonna have 6 parking spots, versus you can build a sixplex and you have 12 parking spots, well, the value of that property is pretty different, and you can't figure that out without your site plan. So you do the site plan, which then tells you, then you can do your numbers. From your numbers, you work back, and you can figure out what you can offer on the property. So that's essentially our process.
Do you target like a certain lot size? Like, listen, I'm not that smart, so I need, like, give me a number. Like, am I looking for 80-foot lots?
that's
Am I
what
looking for
that's
100-foot
Quentin. I
It
lots?
think
depends on what strategy
Come
you're
on,
looking to
give
employ.
me.
well, it's
So
like when people
if you're doing
call
it
like
small, like if
people.
you're talking to most of the people who are going to be starting this, if you want to do a coach house, let's say, as your first one, you probably want to be 500 square meters or over. You can do it underneath 500 square meters, but if a good rule of thumb would be about 500 square meters, you can probably get a coach house there. You still would probably want to do a site plan, because not every lot's the same. It depends on where all the different pieces are. Corner lots are better for sure, because when you have different parking requirements and lot coverage requirements, if you have to bring your parking into the backyard, we're going to use up a whole lot of space on asphalt, versus if it's a corner lot, you can just pop a second driveway right off the side. So you're going to have a lot more space for amenities and for your coach house, let's say, or whatever you're building. And as you go into different sizes and different projects, the things that you look for keep changing, but essentially that's sort of what you're looking for.
Do you only do on market purchases, or have you done any off market purchases with your own marketing?
Both. Done both.
Yeah.
With this opportunity, you don't really, I found that I find more of them on market because there's a higher volume of properties, and there's still a lot of information asymmetry for people who know what they're looking for versus your average realtor, your average person selling. So every day I can find a property that I can fully burr from doing a development pretty much. So
So you don't,
it's out there.
the property doesn't have to be for sale. You can
Oh, I
go
mean,
and,
like on sale, like on the market, I can pretty much find one
oh yeah,
anytime I look. Pretty
I guess
much.
the point I was trying to get to though too is that, you know, the property doesn't necessarily have to be for sale. You
Oh
can
no,
go and if you find something that would be a good opportunity and it's not for sale, you can go. There are many ways to find out who owns the property and get in touch with them and ask them if they want to sell it.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
and one of the things I wanted to mention, Quentin, is we all want the magic bullet, right? Just tell us the answer. It's like one of the big questions I used to get all the time was, how do you structure a JV deal? You know, it's like
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
there's no answer.
yeah, yeah. I get that a
So,
lot too. But you know, the other thing too is just depending on having a good team of people around you. Like I'm not that smart, but I have great people around me who help me, right? And you know, and I developed a good relationships with and deep relationships with people, right? And that helps a lot, right? Because it, you know, those type of relationships, and especially if you have a good reputation with them, helps you to be able to do things that normally other people wouldn't be able to do. And I think that helps quite a bit. But yeah, so I guess that kind of leads us into the next question. What are the advantages of having all your own in-house staff?
there's a lot of advantages to having your own in-house team. Uh, the first story that comes to mind, so we just recently finished a coach house, and the week before we were going to have our tenant come in, we had a plumbing inspection, and what they do is they do a ball test if they weren't able to check the sanitary line, which the servicing contractor, because the coach houses are tight spaces, instead of taking the dirt away and then bringing it back and putting it in, which is way more expensive, they covered the sanitary line as they were going, and the sanitary line shifted while they were installing it. So when they did the ball test, which is dropping a ball in the sanitary line from the coach house to the duplex, and if you catch the ball, you pass, and if you don't catch the ball, you fail.
Wow.
We failed because the ball never made it to the other side. So failed on Monday, tenants moving in on Saturday, servicing contractor can't come back. So we brought our own excavator and our own bobcat and had our own guys there Tuesday, ripped it all up, finished it by Thursday morning, had the inspection in, and we were able to still have the tenant move in on Saturday because we got our occupancy. So there's lots of things like that come up, where scheduling and so forth, where maybe your drywaller can't come in when you're ready for them. Well, then you just send your own guys and you drywall it. So it's much easier to keep your schedules tight, and then and solve issues when you need them solved. But also your team grows with you as well, and they stay in house. So if you treat your team well and you keep sending them to these different jobs and they get all these different experiences, you end up with a fairly valuable team that can take on quite a few different challenges as well. So that's why we really like hiring people instead of doing sub trades.
the other thing too is when you have an emergency like that, you know, no matter who you call, it's like, oh, and here's your emergency fee tacked onto the bill as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. The sanitary contractors actually was pretty good, so he's refunding all the work for us for that one. So he's a good guy, but they just couldn't come, right? You can't
Yeah,
solve,
yeah.
sometimes you can't solve issues that fast. So
That's perfect. Um, so tell us about your construction company. Then you do work for outside clients as well?
yeah, we do. So a full sort of spectrum of where we are right now. We have about 7 landscape construction crews that work under us, and we have about 1 irrigation crew as well. We do about 500 irrigation clients every year. We do 100 to 200 landscaping jobs every year. And we've typically been using our landscapers for our housing construction at this point, because it's primarily been in the winter. We're now actively starting to hire and build out a construction team on our real estate side, because this is the first year we've built out 12 months of real estate construction. So, and yeah, we do clients jobs as well. So I have a client's coach house that we're starting next week, and I'm doing a client's duplex currently. We've done a number of house renos and stuff like that. So actively doing other people's projects as well.
And what's your company called?
North Lakes Developments and Construction.
Right on.
So
Thank you.
I'm curious about cost per square foot, because I know it's like saying how long do you want your haircut? Well, I mean, like, it depends, right? But
Yeah.
because like if you're like Rob's like, what the if you're like me, I'm like, I want to keep as much as I have. So
Yeah.
so like you know, what would you say is like your, like, give us a range for cost of construction when you're doing like a coach house, for example, for a client?
Yeah, for a client, we're typically in, let's say, the 250 to 280 range is where we were charging. So typically have found with everything put together, when they pay for the servicing and the design fees and committee of adjustments and all that stuff, they're for the ones that we've done, they're a little over 300,000, and for that they're getting 660 square feet upstairs and 660 square feet downstairs as well, so about 1,320 square feet. So you can say 320,000 divided by 1320. I don't have my calculator on me right now, but that would be roughly what it is. I think it ends up close to 250-ish or 260 for that. So
Would you ever do 2 units in something like that, like a garden suite? Could you do 2 units like that?
you could do 2 units. Well, right now you can't. Like where I work in Durham region, they don't allow 2 unit coach houses, but it's we've tried to push the size of the coach houses that we build and add basements, so that way we do have that opportunity in the future, where
Nice.
I think that's something that you should be watching for. There's a lot of people who are building coach houses without the basement, which I would not recommend at all, because it's not that much more expensive to get your basement in that building versus just doing the top floor, and you have further opportunity. Where we're heading is space is going to be so expensive that anywhere you can add space is going to be beneficial. So you should definitely put a basement in it for sure.
I like that you're future pacing the development, and you know, also income opportunities, right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, you know, you're doing these projects for clients, and you're also doing these projects for yourself as an investment. And I take it that you know, you have different people that you work with in different capacities. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So up to this point, most of the jobs that we've done have been our own, where we haven't really had too many joint venture partners or very many clients up to this point, but we just started opening up for that. So let's say at this point, 95% of the work we've done is solely owned properties, and now we're starting to do clients. So we had 4 units that we just did for clients this winter, and we're actively getting other people who are contacting us in just for where we do contract work for them, or building projects. We're also doing joint venture on different builds, because like I think this is a great time to be purchasing. So if anyone wants to get in and kind of follow the process and get some pretty profitable projects done, I think it's a really good opportunity. One of the things that people might not think about is, with the development, the building portion is quite a bit more expensive than what it would be when you're doing your duplex conversion or something like that. So actually partnering with your builder, you can do these projects for significantly less capital than what you can if you're to do it by yourself. And that's just because of how construction financing works, because you have to bring a certain portion of equity to the project, but you get to count your project profit towards your equity. So if you partner with your builder, depending on what their overhead chart, what if they're going to discount their overhead and their profit, you can bring a significant amount less money to that project. So you might be able to do one of these builds with far less money.
Ah, very interesting, because it's a game of financing with like bricks kind of thrown in, right?
Yeah.
So this is, real estate development to a T, but and also sometimes you could consider real estate investing, right? It's really about, financing. But that's really interesting how you're able to counter the amount of capital that you need to bring in by looking at the end value. And I'm assuming here that you've done, some videos and you're sharing about like the buildings that you've been doing.
Yeah, just getting started on that. So getting my setup done here. Going to be starting a YouTube channel shortly. I think we're working in an area where I think a lot of people should be paying attention to. So like you were mentioning before, like a lot of duplexes don't really work anymore. So you got a lot of people that are moving into big multifamily or moving to the States, where I don't think as many people have looked into this space, but this is definitely a space where you could move to and do quite well as well. So going to be documenting our process and showing people what we can do. So then if they're interested in partnering with us or hiring us for construction, they get a good sense of what we can do and kind of make it where people are a little bit less scared getting into this space than what they might be. It is a lot you need to learn for sure if you're going to do it yourself. I definitely won't say that it's the easiest investment strategy, that's for sure, but it is one where you can be quite profitable.
Yeah, it's interesting to have seen over time how, and I kind of use this again and again, you used to be able to back in 2004 cash flow on a single family home in Pickering. And and then, take that forward, you started to stop being able to cash flow, and now you have to go to like maybe Belleville or Trenton to be able to cash flow in a single family if you could. And then it was duplexes, right? That will allow you to do that. Now it seems like you have to actually increase the density to a triplex or a fourplex in order for that same property to carry itself.
Yeah.
Or you have to go further out to be able to have that happen. And there's that cash flow allows everybody to hold on to the asset, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of speculation that happens with real estate, and it could put you into a really challenging position, like especially what's been happening last 18 months with interest rates going up so much, right? You get into a position where you're speculating that I mean, truthfully, you make wealth in real estate from the value of the property. And the more it appreciates, the better you end up doing. Cash flow, doesn't, it's great, but it doesn't drive your wealth very much. A couple $100, doesn't really drive your wealth. But having, two or three or $400,000 does, right? But you just don't have the access to it. It's interesting the way that you're doing it is that you're using sweat equity and your insider trading in order to increase the value and make something cash flow positive in areas where normally you couldn't do that today, right? So I think that's like a really neat way of doing it. And you have to have the patience and the like the work ethic to be able to do that, right? It takes cojones. Can I say cojones on this podcast? It takes some cojones to do that.
Yeah.
You got to
Say whatever you want.
Yeah. Yes.
yeah, you got to be able to do that, and dealing with municipalities and inspectors and trades and having your own staff. That's commendable for sure. But for somebody who's just starting out in this space, what kind of like what would you for those type of people, like what kind of help or advice would you give them?
The advice for someone who wanted to do this themselves, I would, what I would first tell them is probably they have to kind of take a step back to think about what's actually the fast way to get through these projects. Because a lot of people that I've talked to are very gung ho, and because it's a very different rhythm development and new construction than doing flips or doing duplex conversions, where people with those are like, all right, we're gonna line up to make sure that we have a permit the day that we close and go, 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 go. Well, that doesn't work in development at all, pretty much. What you have to think about is something that the Marines have told themselves is like slow is steady and steady is fast. And that is the way to get through a development. It is with making sure that you don't forget any steps and making sure that every step is done correctly the first time. Because if you make a mistake, like we had one where our planner made a mistake on our first one. So when we were learning, like we've done 2.5 years of this learning and difficulties. Our planner forgot to sever one of our properties and applied it as two triplexes as one apartment building. And to fix that problem, it's cost us 9 months. So when you think of, that's where the slow is steady and steady is fast. When you get to that point, when you're doing your application, you better have everything right, because if it's not, it's going to cost you. So very different in that sense. The other thing would be, I would strongly advise joint venturing with someone who's done it before, or paying for a good amount of coaching or being around people in this space for a good amount of time before you get into it, because there are a lot of pitfalls and there is a lot to learn in order to be able to do this well. Like, it's not the same as you can go on one or two walkthroughs with a realtor where you can kind of have a good idea of what properties work for a duplex. It's definitely a few steps beyond that. So take the time. If you want to do it, you need to be ready to take the time to learn. And yeah, that's essentially what I say. Be careful. Make sure that you know what you're doing before you get into it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think knowing what you're looking for is one of the key things too, because, and not all agents are built equal either, right? So some of them might not see the potential in the property that you can see, having the
Yeah.
knowledge and going through the experiences that you have. So I think that's a really important key component to all of this, is being able to identify what you can do with that property.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, man, we have learned a lot. We learned Quentin wants longer hair, rock star hair.
Well, not your hair, that's for sure.
No. Although this is looking pretty good, right?
Yeah, you got good facial hair, I gotta say. You got good
Thank
facial
you.
hair. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, that's why the bobblehead has that really great,
Yeah,
beard and
that's
mustache.
chiseled.
Yeah, it's just look at the chin on that bobblehead, man. That's awesome.
It's so funny. Like, I honestly, you when you sent me the first video of that or whatever, I was like, okay, well, that's got to be somebody else, but it does look like me. Like, who is it? And he's like, no, it's you.
Are you kidding? I took your picture off of Facebook and some images off the beach, and I got it done, man.
I'm starting to get worried.
Uh, you know what? I think that there's like one of the things, like I'm always learning and growing and stuff like that. And I do things for people because I think that you create deeper relationships with people by doing it. And I've always done things like that, and it seems so simple, but like, every time you see this, you're gonna remember. And you made it a sticker on
I
your,
did make it a sticker.
so
I
you're
sent
gonna
it to everybody.
you're gonna send it to everybody. But like, that's the thing, right? Like I mean, there was a really great investor. His name is Arlen Dolan out in Edmonton, and I compiled all his Facebook posts into a book, and I made him a physical copy of a book, and I sent him like 100 copies of it to give away.
Wow.
Right? I like Russell Westcott, another really great investor who's impacted me. These people have impacted me, helped me in my life, right? I sent him $150 worth of meat, because he used to say when he was presenting on, raising capital and investing and stuff like that, he would say, "I'm giving you all the meat and no potatoes." And I remembered that, right? So, things like that, like, I think these little things, what we do to create a deeper impact, with people around us, because how many people have asked me to go for coffee or buy me dinner? Like every week I get people that want to do that, or they say, thank you, right? Great. But like, we want to, if you want to create an impact, you got to do things differently. And I think that there's a good book called Giftology, and about buying gifts that create impact. And I can't remember the name of the author, but we'll put it in the show notes. And I think that's these little things are helpful, especially when you're trying to create relationships with people. So it's just a bobblehead, but this guy is gonna, like, Rob is gonna remember this guy every time he sends the sticker.
Yeah, okay, tell you what, the challenge is you have to get a bobblehead for every single one of our guests.
No, no, sorry. Not, well, it could, well, I don't know. I guess you could do that. It depends on how you wanted to do it. I've been on podcasts where people have sent me like mugs with my name on it.
Yeah.
But like, I have got like a pile of mugs. I just, like, my wife said, stop bringing mugs home. And like, I literally get them and I throw them out. Like, what am I going to do with it? Like, right? So there's certain things that I think, I mean, I'm going to cherish this bobblehead, but like, it just depends on what it is that
You know
you're
what we
doing or
could
giving.
do, Quentin, is like if you have stuff like that, we could do giveaways too
Well, I
on the
got lots
show.
of books. I got tons of books.
Yeah,
I
there you
don't
go.
mind giving
We'll
away
have to have
the
some kind of
book.
a challenge though, it can't just be for free, right? They gotta bring their A game in some way. We'll figure that out. We gotta do
Yeah,
some, Sandy and I had some contests before too, and that was fun.
yeah.
So you know what? Write us a review. The best review that we get between now and the next show gets one of Quentin's books.
Absolutely. You can pick. I've got 6 of them. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can write a quick review for us on the
And in the
where?
on on iTunes.
Perfect.
Yeah, go to iTunes, like I say at the beginning of every show, and write us a review. And write us another one under a different name if you've already done it to be eligible for the contest again. But Dan, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it for sure.
Yeah,
And how can
you've
people
been
get in
great.
touch with you?
Yeah, they can send me an email at dan@northlakesdevelopments.ca, or they could reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll get back to them there. So,
And what is it? What handle do you have on Facebook?
Dan Hogenbirk for Facebook, and I believe it's the same for Instagram. I also have North Lakes Developments on Instagram as well, so they could reach out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
spell,
you might mess up the spelling of
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, spell your name for everybody.
Yeah,
Dan.
so my last name is Hogenbirk.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. And Quentin, how can people get in touch with you?
You can go to quintindesouza.com and you can connect with me there, or go to QManREI on Instagram and LinkedIn or whatever. I'm everywhere. I got a link tree too, but
Okay.
just come to the next episode. We can connect there.
Oh, perfect. And one last comment I want to make. before we sign off here is that when you buy here in CR, there is absolutely zero snow removal charges ever. Okay, so I just want to point that out.
Oh, good, because I don't want another colonoscopy.
Okay, everybody, go out there and take some action. Write us that review, enter the contest, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.